Larissa, what's the initial reaction? You see the name come up on the screen and it's the top 8 seed.
I'm so unbelievably proud of everyone who's been involved. I mean, this has always been something that we've set out to do from day one, one of our goals, and we put ourselves in a position to get a top 8 seed. And they've earned it and they deserve it, and I'm just extremely proud of the team, but I'm really excited for the community to be able to watch Mizzou softball again in our stadium.
We were just talking to Lauren, when you look at where people projected you all to finish and where you guys really ended up, what does it mean to see what this team did over this season, improving people?
Hard work pays off. And again, polls are, I will say, meaningless. You know, it's people judging where they think you belong, and we know where we deserve to be, and we did the body of work, and that's really what it comes down to. We deserved it, we earned it, and we did it all year long, and it wasn't one of those things that we just got hot at the end. Like, all season long, we put in the work and had quality wins from the first weekend of our season all the way into the postseason run we had last week. And I think about how we started the season and we won the Leadoff Classic, and we started the season 10-0, and we just continued to compete and battle in every single outing, and hard work pays off.
Coach, you talk about the beginning of the season, a lot of it on the road. You made that a major emphasis in your schedule. Do you think that that's all paid off and was all worth it?
I think absolutely. When I look at our record away from home, I think we had over 30 wins away from home, and I know the committee looks at that, and that's huge, but it also prepares your team to be extremely competitive away from home. And I mean, it's easy to have the home field advantage when you're playing in your own stadium, but to be just as competitive as sometimes not more when you're away from home, it gets recognized. And I'm just glad that they were rewarding us for the schedule that we did have.
I assume you'll do the in-depth scouting over the next 2-3 days, but do you have any initial reactions? Was there anything you immediately knew about any of the teams that popped up in your region?
Not really, other than just watching what they've done throughout the year. I think we have a little tie with Omaha. Emma Robbie, one of our alumni, she's an assistant coach on their staff, and so we've talked all year long and how well they've done, and we were following their postseason run because we were obviously rooting for her as a coach. So it's kind of special that she's coming back home and that we're going to be competing against one another. But Indiana had a great Big Ten run. Washington is always a very high-quality team. So we're just going to have to take it one game at a time and spend the next couple days doing all of our scouting to prepare for all three.
Talk about taking it one game at a time. Last time host regional 2022. Doesn't go the way you want. What have you learned from that experience and hope to take into this season when you are hosting regional once again?
And it's kind of the same mentality that we've had in the SEC play, and really just focusing on one pitch at a time and one game at a time. And, maybe in 2022 that we looked ahead a little bit too much. Hindsight, you might have done things a little bit differently, but we just got to really focus on preparing our team and preparing for every single pitcher, and really being competitive and not assume that anything's going to happen just because you are hosting.
Even though it's late in the season, do you feel like you learned anything different about your team with the SEC tournament, and do you make any adjustments? What's kind of the process with that?
It really started in the South Carolina series because, as everybody knows, that we were 0-7 on Game 3. And what we realized is that our mentality was to sweep, not to win this game, not to win this pitch. And we were kind of looking at the bigger picture. And this team doesn't do well doing that, looking at the bigger picture. We do extremely well when we look at winning every single pitch and winning every single at-bat. And that when we do that, we're very competitive for all 7 innings. And that's what we took into the South Carolina series, is really focused on one pitch at a time, one at-bat at a time. And we were very successful, and that's exactly what we did in the SEC tournament, is just continue to have that competitive mentality, one pitch at a time. And that's what we're going to have to do in this regional to be able to come out with 3 wins.
Is that harder to do in a regional when you've got, double elimination and maybe we're playing it this time tomorrow and, there could be a super if we make it?
It's actually, I'm not going to say it's easy because it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying this with our staff, like everybody who's in this tournament, they're winners. Like they know how to win, and that's why they're there. And then the mid-majors, and we experienced that when we played James Madison. They know how to outwork the system. They have that chip on their shoulder to be able to prove to everybody. So no one's going to come into our stadium and be intimidated. We have to be extremely competitive and have more energy than them. But it is almost a little bit easier to not play the same opponent 3 times. Like that's extremely difficult in our conference, but our conference prepares us for postseason.
Were there nerves before this afternoon? I mean, you know you're in, but I mean the team you beat on Saturday is a 9 seed in not hosting. So how did you feel going in?
I had said to Coach Cottrell that I'm more nervous for the selection show than I am any game I ever coach. Because you have no control at all, and I can't control anything, and I'm not in the room, so I don't know what those conversations are. I knew that our resume, we had the body of work to host. I didn't know if it was going to be a top 8 seed enough because I don't know what they're thinking at the time. But doing the run that we went on in the SEC tournament, to me, it kind of solidified a top 8 seed, being able to get to that championship game. And just from experience, the last time we went to the championship game 3 years ago, it gave us an opportunity to be able to do the same thing.
You talk about, kind of around that edge of the top 8, top 10 teams. Duke finishes number 10 with only 6 losses, but compete in the ACC. SEC gets everybody in, gets 5 hosts, 3 top 8 seeds. Just how difficult is it playing in this conference, and how much does it mean every single weekend?
It just means more. I mean, you laid that one up for me. This conference, and I was talking with Greg Sankey at the SEC tournament before we went onto the studio one of the nights. This conference is a gauntlet. It is so unbelievably tough, and anybody can beat anybody, but what it prepares you is for postseason. Because every single game you play in conference is like you're playing a super regional, which shows you the respect that the committee has for the SEC and how many teams we had hosting. It is so unbelievably tough from top to bottom, and there isn't any gimme games. So it's preparing you for that level of play and that intensity, and knowing that every single pitch you throw, the game's on the line. And that's the difference between playing a non-SEC team and playing an SEC team.
Since we may not talk to you again until after your first game, do you know what you're doing with your pitching already?
No. No, I do not. But, I mean, we're going to put forth the best team to be competitive that first game. And I never look ahead. Like, that's the one thing. Like, you have to win game one. You don't want to go into the loser's bracket from the very beginning, because now you got a big, big hill to climb. So we got to go out and we got to win game one. It becomes a lot easier when you have run support. So we can be able to make a lot of changes. The really great thing about our team is that our pitching staff is so healthy and so fresh. When I look at the SEC tournament and I look at how many innings Lauren Krings has pitched, and she was, around 117, and some of our opponents, they're up around 175. That just shows me how healthy that Krings is. And McCann is below 100, and Harrison is hovering right around 100. So they're extremely healthy and extremely fresh. So I can rely on any single one of them and be able to get the best output out of them.
You talk about those 3 pitchers primarily, but again, Taylor Pinnell, you've used her more in short spurts. We saw a little bit more in South Carolina. Do you think she could be that X factor, that sort of unpredictable that you haven't seen a lot of in these sort of postseason games?
A lot is based on the matchup, and not afraid to bring her in against LSU because of how many lefties they had in the lineup. And it was the same thing with South Carolina going into those extra innings, and we were going to do the same thing if the score was a lot closer against Florida because they had so many lefties in the lineup. She is really, really tough against lefties. And so I'm not afraid to bring her in and use her. And seeing what she was able to do against South Carolina and how long she was able to go, and I think she threw 50 pitches, that's really good to see how healthy she was and how she had the endurance to be able to withstand that, especially since I've only used her for an inning or an inning and a half.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Larissa.